Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we are continuing our ongoing coverage of the war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. But first, just a quick update on the Israeli-Hamas war that is ongoing. As most of you have heard last night from the mainstream media, that the Israeli military has ordered all Palestinians in the northern Gaza to move south of Wadi Gaza, which is just south of Gaza City. Obviously, a wadi is a dry river or stream bed, and that is the locale, allegedly, that Ukrainian forces have ordered Palestinians to move south of. Now, we are hearing that Hamas is counteracting that instruction by the Israelis by stating it's fake news and not allowing, reportedly not allowing, Palestinians to retreat south to get out of get out of the way of what's coming. And we understand that there is going to be a very large Israeli military operation. Ultimately, we anticipate that the Israelis will occupy all of the Gaza Strip, quite possibly, or at least a very large chunk of it. And there is talk that the Israelis could be planning a very large operation against southern Lebanon as well, and Hezbollah, and a possible attack against Iran. We know this is happening. We have very reliable information that, again, indicates that Israel is all in on this war. But we will continue to watch what is happening very, very closely and obviously report. Now back to what is happening on the ground. Right now, the Russians continue the Avdiivka offensive. Again, this is the town city of Avdiivka. Quite a bit larger objective than we would see, say, in the Ukrainian offensives that are going on south of Orkiv, where you see the small town of Robatna under going back and forth between who controls it, who doesn't, who does not. But again, very small village, very small town when you compare what's happening up here in Avdiivka. Again, a much larger military objective. And the Russians appear to, at this point, be trying to encircle Avdiivka. We know to the north by northwest, in this locale, is one of the main areas of the Russian attack. We also have information that the Russians have actually moved past this main railway line to the west of this locale. Russian troops have actually crossed this locale. Now, we have seen very large Russian operations, I would say large in terms of what we have seen over the past 90 days. We are seeing multi-battalion tactical groups. We are seeing large columns of Russian tanks and infantry fighting vehicles, massive amounts of Russian artillery being employed against Ukrainian forces. Now, I had the opportunity to watch one of the many numerous videos of the ongoing conflict. And there's times where I critique and try to analyze what is happening on these video clips. Unfortunately, because of the way YouTube is, the way Google is, I cannot show you the video and explain what is happening. That's very unfortunate. I would love to show you that video. Unfortunately, even if I talk about a sensitive subject, okay, that other mainstream carriers are talking about, my video will be censored. That is the way Google is. Now, what did I see on this video clip? Well, you see a column of Russian armored fighting vehicles, tanks, attempting to cross what appears to be either an anti-tank ditch or a river obstacle. There is a pontoon bridge over the obstacle, and you can see a lone tank attempting to cross this pontoon bridge and get to the other side, while there is a column of other Russian vehicles directly behind him. And what then happens is that tank veers a little bit to the right. He misjudges the crossing of the pontoon and ends up flipping over into the water or the anti-tank ditch. And what happened? What happened there? Well, a couple of things happened. Obviously, if you're a Russian tanker, or any tanker for that matter, in preparation for some of these operations, you may get debriefed late at night in terms of what you're going to do, what the mission is going to actually be. Lots of times you are up all night, maybe taking little cat naps in between as you prepare for this upcoming operation. And a lot of this is just sitting and waiting. And yeah, they do get a chance to snooze off, but obviously it's not completely comfortable sleeping in a tank. I would say the M1 Abrams was more comfortable sleeping in than, say, a T-72, T-80, or T-90. You can lay the actual driver's seat back and actually get a good amount of sleep if you wanted to. I don't believe you can do that the same way in, say, a Russian main battle tank. But the point being is, it's possible this guy was just really tired and he was nodding off and he just wasn't paying attention and went off. I've seen it happen in the U.S. military before. It happens. And it happens probably more than you think it does. Now, obviously, during a high-tempo military operation, the likes of which we're seeing now, probably not the best time to have nodded off and rolled your tank. The methodology in which the Russians were crossing that water obstacle was a bit strange as well. I don't know how much resistance the Russians believed that the Ukrainians were going to throw against them, but I didn't see any ground guides on the ground, and maybe that could have helped that Russian tanker get over that pontoon bridge. Training as well. You have to have experience going over some of these pontoon bridges. Obviously, in a tank, your view is obstructed, and I would say 100% of the time in the American Army, if you're crossing a pontoon bridge or you're loading your tank on a tank transport vehicle, you always have a ground guide. That ground guide is the one showing you. You are watching the ground guide. You are not watching anything else, and you're watching his hand signals, and you're simply doing what he is instructing you to do. Now, I didn't initially see a ground guide down on the ground as he tried to cross that water obstacle. Then obviously as well the tank commander. The tank commander has a much better view, and usually the tank commander is instructing the driver, hey driver, nudge left, nudge right, left, right, so forth and so on. And there's that communication that's constantly happening, and that possibly wasn't occurring either. Maybe it's Ukrainian snipers were operating in the area, and the tank commanders of the Russian military were instructed to button up. But it's not as easy as you think it is crossing a pontoon bridge, especially if you don't have a ground guide or someone else helping you. If you're just especially if you're in a closed hatch situation, in that Russian tank trying to cross that pontoon bridge. Very difficult to do, not easy to do. And if you were going to try to do it buttoned up with no ground guide, you would have had experience with that specific type of pontoon bridge, understanding where you need to line yourself up, how to cross it, and so forth and so on. So again, there's just more to it than what actually appears. And then furthermore, the way the Russian tanks and armored infantry fighting vehicles behind that lone tank that was trying to cross the pontoon bridge were lining up way too close together. Normally, you would have those armored vehicles at that crossing point, well behind that crossing point. They would be moving up in platoon-sized elements of 3 to 4 tanks. 3 tanks if you're Russian, 4 tanks if you're an American unit. An American platoon is 4 tanks, and that's how you would cross. And you would be keeping spatial distances between the armored vehicles, especially in light of active HIMARS and precision-guided weapon systems that the Ukrainians have and are using. So again, that little strange to see that close proximity of Russian forces, and again, it shows you that some of these units just may not be that well trained, and especially in terms of the Russian leadership, the lieutenants, the company commanders, what have you. Those are the individuals that should be teaching those Russian AFV drivers, tank drivers, what to do and how to do it. And just based on that one video, not sure that's happening. Or again, we just don't know completely what was going on in the background. There's a lot happening that obviously that I'm not seeing. So I ultimately can't judge that operation completely. Although I will say it was not up to par of what you would see with an American trained unit, at least when I was in the military. So that's all I'm going to address on that. But again, this Russian offensive is continuing near Avdiivka. It is glaringly apparent that the Russians have decided to seize control of this city, of this town. And a lot of Russian resources are being used to take Avdiivka. So why Avdiivka? Why are the Russians looking to take this town? Well, one, it's very close to Donetsk, one of the main Russian towns, cities of the former Russian separatist movement, Novorossiya. Obviously, this area is now under Russian control, but people do live in Donetsk, and the Ukrainians have artillery in Avdiivka, and they have artillery west of Donetsk. I think at this point, the Russians are attempting to push Ukrainians out of positions that could threaten Donetsk with certain types of weapon systems. And then obviously they want the town, or they want to give a buffer zone to Donetsk, and that's, I believe, what we are watching. And then you also have to look at infrastructure as well, logistical infrastructure. At this point, I think it would be in all probability a very good decision by the Russians to take Avdiivka, and that's what we're seeing happen. That operation will continue. We're continuing to watch it very, very closely. Additionally, fighting continues elsewhere as well. It is happening all across the front, to include all the way down towards Kherson and then all the way east towards Kupiansk. This war is not letting up. Very heavy fighting on all fronts, specifically right now with very heavy fighting taking place near Avdiivka. So we will continue to cover. We will continue to report. Thank you for joining us today. And as always, have a good day.